All right, so last summer was insane. Um, Last July, I had planned a brunch meetup with my family. We were supposed to go to Hotel X for brunch, and I'd been trying to organize family meetups and gatherings because I hadn't seen, we hadn't seen each other. Sorry, they haven't seen me because they've been meeting up with each other without me. That's one thing. They were getting together for lunches and dinners and birthdays without inviting me. So that's one clue that I thought was weird about dealing with my family. But anyway, I've been trying to plan some things, and every time I would plan something, the plans would always fall through. So, Anita Baker was coming. I bought tickets to see her for my stepmom, and Anita Baker canceled and she wasn't coming to TO. I would try to plan to go visit my stepmom at her place out of town, and then I would be scheduled to work. Like there was always something stopping the meeting. So because I didn't really mind whether or not I hung out with my siblings because they stopped kind of inviting me to meet up with them to do things. I was just more concerned to spend time with my stepmom, catch up and make sure everything was cool. So I never told them about the brunch. I just told my stepmom about it and made reservations. Now there was something really interesting that my stepmother kept doing. She would constantly try to belittle me in scenarios where I was trying to deal with her directly as a person. And from what I understand looking back, I feel that most of her dialogue with me was happening a certain way because she wanted to fight with me to get me to be defensive or to say things out of pocket. And I'll explain why this was the case. Anytime I'd have interactions with her close enough for me to be justifiably upset, she would constantly turn on her phone and hit the record button to try to record what I was saying. So I thought it was weird that she would say inflammatory statements to get me to react. That's one thing I noticed. So specifically for this brunch at Hotel X, she had told me that I'm not being mature because I should be extending invites to my brother and sister, which I thought was weird because for the last 2 to 3 years, they just don't invite me to hang out with them. And because I'm older, I never really thought of it as a big deal because, we're growing up, we're mature, we're adults now. So I stopped inviting them to things and I would just extend an invite to my stepmom. But whenever I would extend an invite to her, something was always canceled. And I thought it was weird that how come every time I try to set up something, there's always an interruption or it's always canceled? So pay attention when you're trying to push for something and it's not moving forward. There's something there you got to be careful with, right? So brunch was set. We coordinated a time. We said it was going to be on a Sunday. With her pushing me to invite my siblings, I extended the invite to them. I left my home at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I just, when you leave home, you just say, all right, hopefully I'll get to where I'm going safely. Thank you. On my way to this brunch at Dufferin Station, I get a phone call from my stepmom. They've been in a car accident on the Gardner, or the Gardner, yes. They're in a car accident and they're on the side of the road. Her car is totaled. They're waiting for emergency to arrive. Within a 15 to 20-minute time lapse of us agreeing for the date and time and where we're going to meet, they get into a car accident. How? What? What's going on? So at this point, I'm near the hotel checking to see what I'm supposed to do. And my stepmom calls me back again. And she's telling me that they're going to St. Mike's Hospital. And I was like, okay, I'm going there right now. Then she calls me back again. And I'm like, for someone who's been in a car accident so drastic, why does she keep calling me? To get what I'm saying? So she calls me back for the third time and she says she called my brother to tell him that they've been in a car accident, and she says that my brother's crying. And I don't know, my brother's very emotionless. So I just thought it was weird that she was telling me that he was upset, but when I actually messaged him, he wasn't upset. So I cancel the reservations at the hotel restaurant. I pick up an Uber from where I am and go over to St. Mike's Hospital. The traffic cop that was assigned to their case asked if I was the one in the accident because I had injured my arm at my job a few weeks prior to this accident. And I told the traffic cop that no, it wasn't me that was in the accident, but my sister and my stepmom are at the hospital. They were in the accident. So he gives me his business card, and then he gives me the business card of the tow truck company. And when I look at the business card for the tow truck company, the tow truck company's in my neighborhood, about 10 minutes away from my house. And I'm like, how is it that the tow truck company that picked up my stepmom's car is in my neighborhood? Anyway, I thank the police officer. I go to where my sister's staying. She's shaken from the whole situation. My stepmom is shaken, but she's completely fine. She's sitting in the waiting room, waiting to be briefed on some more information about what happened. My sister is explaining to me the car flying in the air and hitting them in the back of the passenger side, like all kinds of details. I'm freaked out because I don't understand how something could happen like this instantaneously, back to back to back to back. Within 45 minutes, my brother arrives, and then another 40 minutes, my sister's friend that she's dating, guy friend, boyfriend, he arrives. And something really strange about them when they arrived to the hospital, they both had do-rags on and they were both wearing sunglasses. I just felt unnerved by the whole thing, but I just remained quiet and observant. My brother comes with food. I ate some of the food. I stayed at the hospital until the nurses and doctors assessed my stepmom and my sister. They said my sister was going to feel bad for a while before she felt good because of the aftershock. So they released her from the hospital, and my brother came with his car, so he was going to drive her home. And My stepmom was gonna also go with her friend who was a co-worker that still worked at that hospital that they were admitted to, and she lives in her neighborhood, so they were gonna drive home. And my mom pulls out this thick stack of 20s and she asked us if we needed money. And I didn't need money, but I think she gave my sister a few bills, and we got in the car, and that was it. My brother dropped me off at home. He dropped my sister off at home. And then for the next 10 to 15 days, there was just chaos everywhere, 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 everywhere. So I came home, everything was fine. I'm gonna get very personal here, but for women, we get our monthly cycles, and my cycle was due on that day, at the day we were at the hospital, and I missed it probably from the shock of this critical accident that happened. So it happens with women. Within 8 days of that meeting with the family, my cycle showed up. And for the next 60 days, I bled and bled and bled and bled. I was bleeding so much that I had to wear diapers. I was bleeding so much that my hemoglobin and my iron dipped low. I was bleeding so much that I had to be rushed to the same hospital that I was just at with my family for the car accident because I almost went into cardiac arrest. I was bleeding so much that my whole body was swollen. I was bleeding so much I had to get an iron transfusion. I bled and bled and bled that the doctors were concerned that I would have a heart attack. I was back in the hospital at the ending of September, and I had to get a blood transfusion, an emergency blood transfusion. This is the irony of the situation. As I was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, I would call my stepmom to find out how they were doing, make sure they were okay. And while I was telling her that this is what was happening, she was cold, stone cold. She didn't care that I was bleeding. She brushed off what I was going through. She offered me like very haphazard pointers, and this was unlike the person I knew all these years. Something was going on. Because of what I was going through, and they had just had an accident, she was sorting out issues with the insurance company, she said, and she didn't have a car, she said. I ended up spending all this time at the hospital alone. No next of kin, nobody to call. 6-hour iron transfusion alone in the hospital. Next visit to the hospital, I was alone overnight in the hospital. And no one cared. And I'm not trying to remain in a victim mindset when I'm telling you this, but what I am saying is, for those of you who have family members that don't really care, even when you've cared for them most of your life, this is how narcissism shows up. You start to see it in the moments where you need your family or those close to you the most. Between being heartbroken because of all the things that had happened years before this 2022, and then the shock of having to tackle these freak health incidences. I just felt in my heart that something was wrong. The chaos around me was insane. Luckily, miraculously, I'm recovered in 2023. I'm fine. I'm more than fine. I'm excellent. But after July 2022, I decided to cut ties with my family. The chaos that was brought around my home didn't just start in 2022, it had been going on since 2019. There's so much to unpack with the details. These health issues derailed my goals that I had put in place for business, for work, for jobs, and I'm so grateful to have gotten the two amazing contracts that I got for work in 2021 and 2022. I'll fill you in on what early 2022 was and what it was like in 2019, 2020, 2021, and then, like I said, early 2022. Thank you.